Hi, it's Alice and I'm in my violin studio. Today I want to talk about tuning because apparently there's some of you out there who'd like a little advice. Tuning is kind of tricky. I'm not supposed to tell you that. But hey, if you're a beginner or if you're in the early years, if you're a parent and you have a small child, you probably have a violin with 4 fine tuners. I only have one. At some point you get tired of cranking on screws and you get rid of them. The fine tuner for the E string works really well though, because the E string, the notes are very, very close together, so a very fine adjustment will make a big difference in the tuning. And a peg is not maybe the best solution for a steel wire. 100 years ago, people were still using gut E strings, and pegs work really well with gut strings. They're not so genius with, a really fine, high-pressure wires. So the fine tuner is really important on the E string. On the A string, if you're in the early years, it's very helpful, especially if you've got a little violin. The problem with a full-size violin on a G string is you have to do a lot of cranking to make a change, a perceptible change in the pitch. So you tend to, the fine tuner gets screwed in pretty quickly, and then, it's not doing anything for you anymore. But if you're tuning a small violin, the screw is it doesn't require any skill. It's pretty, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. As you loosen, the pitch goes down. As you tighten, the pitch goes up. Okay? You may, if you're, everybody nowadays buys some sort of electronic device, and I actually have none at the moment because I've managed to break them all. I guess I'll get something, but this is a pitch pipe. This is pretty old-fashioned. This is really cheap, like $3 to $7. And this kind of does, it's quick and dirty, A, E, and D and G are on the other end. So, you blow into the pipe and you get an A, and then you compare. And when you're playing a stroke to find out if your instrument is in tune, you want to go, you don't want to go crazy. Place your bow gently and play a piano stroke, preferably with a slow bow. It gives you a chance to listen to it. If you start, you're going to create a distortion, and then you're not clearly hearing exactly how the pitch is on that string. So, or you might start. The classic. I had somebody say, "Why do violinists always tune with an up bow stroke?" We do tend to do that, but it's no particular reason except that you get a nice clear pitch. It's not too loud. You don't want to tune loudly. It annoys the people around you, if there are any. And this is calm. The sound waves are calm. You can hear what it is. Okay, so that's how you listen and you compare. And if you need to go a little bit higher compared to the, where's the A? That actually sounds pretty bang on. There is okay, well, I'll just leave it with pitch. If you have an electronic device, most of them either will play a tone which you have to match, or they'll have a strobe, and if you play your note, the needle will tell you if you're too low or too high. So that's, it's pretty obvious. You don't really need any help from me. Just use the fine tuners and you're done. Any major tuning issues, take it back to your teacher or a violin shop if you've had a complete disaster, if the bridge has fallen over something. Once you've been playing for a little while, things change. You have to start at some point learning how to tune the thing yourself. And we have these marvelous keys. What do you call them? Pegs in English. They look like they're just a straight cylinder, but actually they have a taper on them. And the holes in the see this part that's carved out and the strings go into, it's called the string box. So the holes that go through the string box are supposed to be a little bit tapered as opposed to parallel. I believe. I'm not a luthier. But the pegs definitely are a little bit tapered so that as you twist them inwards, they grab and they stick. So which is why if you want to loosen a string, you don't just turn the peg towards you. You also pull it out just a little bit. So you kind of out and down, in and up. Does that make sense? So if I want to loosen my string, I didn't really have to do it here because this peg just kind of popped out by itself, but now when I go back up, I'm definitely going to have to push it in. So, which is why, I don't know if you can see this, I'm putting one finger on the other side of the scroll, and then I use a couple fingers for the peg. Now this particular peg is at a really inconvenient angle and not working very well. Okay, so I was able to get it back in. That's pretty close. I'm going to use a tuning fork this time instead of a pitch pipe, because once you're not a beginner anymore, you don't want to use a pitch pipe. We have tuning forks. I always use a tuning fork in my studio. I've got a bunch of them and they're kicking around. I find them might look like this. This is more kind of classic. So what you do with this is this is my little one. You hit a bone. You don't want to go banging this on a music stand because it will actually put the tuning fork out of tune, and then the pitch it gives you is no longer accurate. So we usually tap it on a spot where you've got a bone close to the surface and go gently. You don't want to tap it flat. That won't work. I don't know if you can see, not that way. You want to tap it, okay, with the second, so only one of the two forks touches your bone, right? And you get a nice, you can tell if it kind of did dud, or you can feel it from the vibration. That wasn't very good. I'm going to use my knee. You can't see that. I'll do that one more time. Hopefully you can hear that. So what we do with that, put the point on the bridge of the violin, and then you're using the sound box of the violin to turn the tuning fork into an instrument and make its own sound. The other thing you can do is just kind of set it on, you've got a little cartilagey bit in the middle of the front of your ear. Set it on there, and then you're using your whole head as a resonating chamber, and you can hear the note pretty well. That works really well, but for a violin, I have to say this takes the cake, because if by any chance your A that's on the violin is perfectly in tune to the tuning fork, not only will the tuning fork use the resonating chamber of the violin, but the strings will start to vibrate in sympathy because they are exactly on the same frequency. So the whole thing kind of goes boo, and then it's a no-brainer. You say, oh, it's in tune, because you can actually, this is. So we're good. I'm going to leave that alone. Next string. This again, can you see? So I've got my pinky curled around the far side of the scroll, and then I use two fingers to grab the key, or the peg, and I loosened and lowered, and I went in and up. And there's kind of, each gesture will have a natural flow to it, and when you're done, you're done. Don't overtune. Especially if you're using strings that have a Perlon or a synthetic core, or if you're using real gut strings, they might be metal on the outside, but they might have a gut interior. Those strings don't really appreciate being stretched too far. And so if you consistently overtune, they will wear out very quickly on you. I've never used the metal core strings. I would think that they're not as fussy, but generally it's not a good idea to overtune. So don't go above the note. That's actually fairly close, but I'm going to do it again. So start the tip, nice smooth stroke with the bow. Take your fingers and now push in and up. That came out pretty good. Sometimes a violin kind of settles in and just tunes very easily, and some violins are just a nightmare. So I loosened it gently, because I don't want it to go spring and have my string, completely come unwound. Okay, not right. Again. quite right. But now let's talk about, all right, I'm going to come closer. I'm coming closer. How do you tell when the string is in tune? The interval that we're tuning is a fifth, and fifths are perfect. If you remember your theory lessons, fourths and fifths should be perfect, or else they're augmented, or else they're just out of tune. What that really means is that you're playing two notes, and a note creates a sound wave, right? You can't see it, but so a note is going to create a wave. It might be like that. Another note might create a wave that looks like, okay? So if you play those two notes together, you get the one loose one and you get the one tight one. There will be moments at which those waves will hit each other, and that will create a little bit of dissonance. Now, on some notes, the patterns kind of fit together pretty well, so it's a fairly consonant sound. Yeah, I can't think of the word. On other notes, those two, we got a lot of sharp ends bouncing against each other, and they go this in your ear, and it's kind of unpleasant. And you know that's not in tune. You can hear, if you listen, you can hear actually the sound waves come into your ear, and they're doing a little battle in there. So you actually get a little fluck, 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 fluck going on in your ear. So now let's go back to our fifth. Because it's a perfect interval. I'm not a scientist. I don't know if that means that they have the exact same pattern, or if it's simply that the patterns are somehow harmonious. But what you should not hear is any beat or fluctuation. There should be no fluck, fluck, fluck going on. So I don't know if you can hear that. It depends on your speakers and the computer and all the recording and stuff. I'll try it on the other string. Okay, there's a lot of beats going on here. You kind of blah, 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 blah. And then we get to where there's none, almost exactly none, and you've got a nice consonant perfect fifth. When you get further along, there is a point in life when playing chamber music when we want to compress the fifths a little bit if we're playing with people in a string quartet. You don't have to worry about that probably unless you're at a university level. So, trying to think if there's anything else really important. That's the basics. So hopefully that helps a little bit, and good luck. It does. Oh, I do want to say it takes time. The skill of tuning a violin is it's a skill. It's not an easy one. It can take a little while. So keep at it. You get good at what you do. So don't wait to just kind of have the bounty of heavens descend on you and become good in your sleep. It won't happen. You just gotta keep trying, and you will eventually acquire the skill. And, when all else fails, use the fine tuners in the meantime. Oh, there is one other thing I want to mention. Don't get in the habit of using one of those tuners where it tells you if you're in tune or not. Okay, you're a violinist, you've got to develop your ears, because if you can't learn to have really sharp ears, you're not going to be able to play in tune. This instrument is not like a piano. You don't depress a key and get a note. You've got to create your notes. So you need to develop your ear, and tuning is an important way of keeping your ear tuned as well as your instrument. So I know the electronic devices are fun, but don't depend on them too much. Make sure that your ears are sharp, okay? So have fun. Bye.